Hello and welcome to Insurance Agents Talk Shop. I'm your host, Doug Coombs, Chief Marketing Officer at SIAA. Today's episode is admittedly self-focused as we talk with my guest, Matt Masiello, Chief Executive Officer at SIAA, regarding the recent announcement by the company that they have taken on a new investor. I'd like to provide our listeners with the opportunity to hear about the transaction directly from the person who will continue to run the show once the deal closes. Matt, welcome to Insurance Agents Talk Shop.
Thanks, Doug. Looking forward to the session today.
Thank you. Our attention today is actually on the recent investment in SIAA by Odyssey Investment Partners and what it means to existing SIAA member agencies, future SIAA member agencies, in the insurance industry overall. So, Matt, I'd like to start by asking what prompted the first and largest independent insurance agency network in the country to go down the path of selling its majority ownership to a private equity firm?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's interesting as I've talked to agents and other folks around the country. It doesn't matter whether you're a small insurance agency or whether you're somebody like SIA. We all have to deal with perpetuation at some point. And so, in the SIA world, Jim Masiello founded the organization 38 years ago. Started the model in New England. Spent 60 years in the insurance industry and decided to move on. And so it created an opportunity for us to bring in new investors and some new blood and really sort of position the business for moving forward. So what it really came down to was perpetuation, and then that perpetuation created an opportunity for us and for a lot of our member agencies and the folks that we do business with down the road as well.
Gotcha. So, as I understand it, as I know it, the definitive agreement was signed on March 26th. When do you expect the deal to actually close?
We should close this deal probably April 30th. I don't think it'll go much longer than that. It's interesting that we've all seen insurance companies enter into letters of intent and purchase and sale agreements, and then we see some little blurb at some point down the road when they actually close. So the close is sort of a non-event. At that stage, we're sort of already positioning the company for our move forward activities. And I think it's also important to note that while we're in this sort of straddle stage, if you will, that we really focus on what we can do well. We're really focusing on what sort of got us here, making sure that we're continuing to provide services and benefits to help the agencies grow and succeed. But what's starting to get fun for us is we're starting to figure out where we can add some more accelerators to help speed up our primary services and benefits for our agencies. So basically, during this time between signing and closing, we're just shoring up the core of our business and the core of our capabilities, and then starting to figure out where we can move into things like more data-driven initiatives that are going to help agencies grow, but also helping carriers continue to generate the production that we've done with them in the past too.
So you would define this as a win-win-win in this case, then, meaning SIAA, your member agencies, and your carrier partners.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that when we were sort of going down through this path, one of the things we took a good long look at was our ecosystem. And what I mean by that is who are the folks that financially sort of participate and benefit within this business model? It's our member agencies and the principals of those member agencies around the country. It's our master agencies and those principals and their staff. It's us and our own employees, here in New Hampshire and around the country. And it's even the carriers that now rely on our production as well. And so when you say win-win-win, we took that into account when we were selecting our partners and when we were deciding the path that we were going to go forward with.
Great. Okay. It's interesting. And I think most of our listeners assume that there were more than one investor interested in a company as successful as SIAA. And is that the case? And if so, what is it about Odyssey Investment Partners that made ownership decide they were the right partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we did. We had some really great organizations in this process. We were represented by Goldman Sachs as our investment banker. But what it really came down to in the end for Odyssey Investment Partners is they just seemed and they felt like a great fit. One of the sort of the things that I came up with was, as I got to know the partners there and the folks that we were working with, I determined that I could probably take them and I could drop them in a room of SIAA master agencies or SIAA member agencies. And within a few minutes, most agencies would look at these folks as one of them. They understand our industry. They understand our business model. They understand the importance of an independent agency and the plight of an independent agency and the importance of the distribution. So, really what it came down to is they talked like us, they acted like us, and they understood what we do and why it's important.
Gotcha. Relatability is so important in the success of organizations, I think. So that's a good point. And I'd like to take that one more step then and ask about what's the impact of the investment by Odyssey on your management team and staff?
Yeah, it's really minimal. So Odyssey is one of these private equity firms that invests in businesses, and the businesses management teams that got the business to where it is. They're not one of these organizations that wants to come in and sort of break the mold or replace what already got us here. We've been a pretty successful organization. We've helped a lot of people over the years, and these folks, they liked the management team. They weren't just investing in the company, but they were investing in the people here at the company. So we view them as additive to those of us that are going to continue to work here. They're additive to how we're going to accomplish our mission.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's switch that then to focus on your member agencies, your existing member agencies, and what does this deal mean to them? And as you answer this question, can you separate near-term implications as compared to longer-term implications?
Yeah. So on a day-to-day basis right now, this is a perfectly seamless transaction for our existing member agencies. Probably the biggest thing that the agencies just need to know, or the carriers that might listen to this need to know, is that this whole event is about reinvesting into our future, into our collective futures. Longer term, there's a lot of different places that we can go from sort of a high level. We're doing business with 12 to 13% of independent agencies today. We've got $10 billion of premium on the books being written by those agencies. So what I'll tell you is sort of my personal goal and where I think we can take the organization is to really be the tip of the spear in the evolution of the independent agency and the independent agency distribution channel. I think what you're going to see is more investments in data. You're going to see a more proactive approach to InsurTech. We're going to apply those sort of accelerators, if you will, to the services and benefits that we have. And it's important to note that every investment that we make is ultimately to help agencies write, service, and renew business. Our whole every day starts with those three things: helping agencies write, service, and renew business. But if we can add these things like InsurTech and data and more aggressive sort of modern sales tactics and things like that to help agencies, that's going to be a win for us. And I think that's what people can look for from a longer point of view.
Okay. Understood. So now, as you say that, and I think about the fact that SIAA is the largest network in the country, I'm wondering if we've seen change in activity since the announcement hit the media. And here I'm talking about, or I'm referring to activity relative to any competitors or member agencies, prospective member agencies, or even company partners in terms of, the reaction to the news.
Yeah, so the announcement actually has been pretty well received across the industry. Let me sort of take the last one first, which is the company partners. They're excited. We generate a significant amount of organic growth and new business. Our member agencies generate all this business for these carriers, and they recognize our importance within the agency distribution channel. So the carriers this has been incredibly well received with those folks. Actually, most of the discussions have now been, how can we partner better? Can we start sharing some data more aggressively? Things like that. From a member standpoint, pretty much everybody's understood that, and we've been very communicative throughout this process with our member agencies, that most of them understand that this is a business process. Like I said in the beginning, it's perpetuation, but it's been well received, and I think it opens up new opportunities for our agencies. I sort of chuckle a little bit on the competitor thing. Yeah, there's maybe a couple competitors that thought they could maybe use this against us with our member agencies, try and drive a wedge there. I think to a certain degree it backfired. on them relative to reaching out to our agencies. And honestly, we work hard. And we've been very successful, and we've been successful because we help people run their businesses and grow their businesses and achieve their goals. And I think most people recognize that if we're making investments, we're going to make more and more investments back into helping people do that. And so, I'm not sure what the competitors thought was going to happen by reaching out to some of our agencies, but we're going to get even more aggressive to help our agencies compete in their market space, and we're excited to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So I do see it as completely natural that some kind of ripple would have been caused through that news, obviously by the largest network in the country. I think it's only logical, and I'm sure that you probably actually anticipated some level of that kind of activity. So
yeah, we did, and it's been a non-issue for us.
Excellent. Okay, so my next question is going to take a little time to build, so bear with me, Matt. The process of making the transition to where SIAA is now, relative to the upcoming transaction, has taken more time than most people probably realize. In fact, you and I both know it's been well over a year. So recognizing that your analysis of SIAA's go-forward strategy and the investment by Odyssey Investment Partners was a major focus for you in 2020, and also recognizing that your book, Insurance Agency 4.0, came out in October of 2020, is there a correlation between the content of your book and the future of SIAA?
Yeah, I always tell people there's no such thing as a coincidence. And this is a good example of that. So the book, Insurance Agency 4.0, for me, it was a little bit of a COVID project. I think we're all sort of looking for additional ways to sort of keep our brains busy during, the high points of some of the shutdown. It was also for me a way to sort of put my thoughts down on paper. I've spoken for years and I've written articles for years about how I view the industry. And people hear me reference every once in a while my blurry crystal ball. And my blurry crystal ball has these occasional visions of clarity. And we were all home, and kids weren't in school. And, think about just where we were, a year ago at this point. I know I had some time to sort through my visions and my, almost 3 decades of experience. And it gave me some time to play a little bit, and to play almost insurance distribution futurist, if you will, which I never thought I would use my name and the word futurist in the same sentence. But ultimately, what happened during the pandemic, and as I was also working on this deal, which slowed down obviously during the pandemic, is I realized I could take some of that knowledge and that fuzzy crystal ball and really come up with a way to help agents. And so the book, really, the goal of, by the way, those of my peers that listen to this that have written books, they know you're not doing it to make money. The goal of the book was really to help agents. And since SIA's business and our master agency's business is dependent on helping agencies succeed, then the book and even the event of the last year, the goal of those things are very, very much related in creating agency success.
So your book focuses a great deal, obviously, on the digital component of a insurance agency going forward. Some of the steps those agents should take, or the agency owners should take, to make sure that they're prepared. Very practical, very hands-on. Is there something you see in terms of SIAA in its go-forward position that ties in, if you will, lockstep with that whole thought process?
I think it does. I mean, so the premise of the book is obviously the digitization of an insurance agency, and it's, for those of you that have read the book, it's not a technology book. It's really a business practice book. What we're trying to do is teach agencies how to create a cadence or a practice to look at digital capabilities and be constantly improving and expanding them. And I think that's part of that being the tip of the spear, if you will, of the evolution of the independent agency distribution channel. Agencies that bend and mold to the changes of the consumer today and the evolving consumer into the future, and implement digital capabilities and digital strategies across what has already made agencies successful. That fits into our model, and that's sort of where the theme of the book took it as well.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So let me then ask you pointedly, chapter 4 of your book, Matt, is titled People Still Matter. Does that resonate with the future of SIAA as well?
Yeah, it does, right? So change is hard. And for those of us that have been in management roles for a while, you understand that change management becomes part of sort of your daily cadence, if you will. So, whether there's change in agency staff, in their culture towards digitization, or change to be more sales focused organizations, or change in our own staff to take what we've done well for years and years and now go to a whole new level. So, when I talk about people still matter, what I do is I spend a lot of time just reminding everybody that you have to have empathy for the people that are around you. You have to realize that they've got personal lives, that they've got their own challenges and problems. By the way, they have their own goals, which you can help help them meet. And so what I try and do is explain that we have to sort of take a cadence to shake ourselves out of our comfort zones when we're doing change management. And it really, you and I have been doing this for a long time in this organization, and we've been through some of this change management, whether it's implementing digital capabilities or other initiatives or going through this process now. And so I think that the book allowed me to sort of put down on paper that we practice what we preach, that we follow change management led by empathy. And then we take that empathy, whether it's with our own staff or whether it's looking at our agents that are out there, and use that to show them that we're taking a leadership role, but that we also understand they need to sort of change at the right pace. But if we all do that together, obviously we can succeed together as well. So, it's the whole, the golden triangle of people, process, and technology. And a lot of times people overlook managers overlook the people part of it. And I think it's super important.
Yeah. And I don't think that can be overstated, right? So,
right.
Okay, so since we're here, and I know you said you didn't write the book for the money, and I understand that, can appreciate that. Would you share with our listeners, though, how your book is doing? Like how many copies have you sold, and where people can purchase it if they're so inclined?
Yeah, sure. So in my mind, the book has done well because my goal was to get it into the hands of agents that would use it. And so, it was distributed and promoted mostly online. We've probably sold maybe 3,000 to 3,500 copies. A lot of sort of promotions on social media that were not driven by me, by the way. They were driven by sort of peers in the industry that read the book and thought it was meaningful to agents. And so that was sort of flattering, especially a lot of the individuals that are actually not part of SIA that got hold of it and thought it was meaningful. So, if people want to buy the book, they can just go to Amazon. I'm a firm believer of keeping it simple and just plug in either Matt Masiello or plug in Insurance Agency 4.0 and the book will come up right there. I'd love some reviews, by the way, if anybody wants to give me. I only take good ones, but if they want to give me,
of course,
it'd be fun. And then if they want to learn more about the book without buying it, they can visit my personal website, which is mattmasiello.com. And there's an Insurance Agency 4.0 website, which page, which also includes, for those that have read the book, know that there's a whole bunch of worksheets and sort of so it's self exams for your agency and things like that they can take. And so whether you buy the book or not, actually, all those documents are available for free to download if they help anybody off that website.
Well, that's awesome. I guess as you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, it's really a nice way to, what you've done is provide a roadmap for the digitization of an insurance agency. And if people are so inclined, I would say that it makes sense that they should at least check it out. And certainly, as you said, the documents that are available for them to use.
That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to switch back for a minute to the upcoming transaction. And this is another slow build, so please bear with me. I've seen your video titled The Future of SIAA. I've been in meetings where you have addressed SIAA staff and master agency owners, and I recognize that you will remain the CEO of the company post-transaction, and that nothing is going to change from an operations perspective on day one. And you've said as much here on our podcast today. But you have talked about the recapitalization resulting from the new investors, enabling SIAA to expand its focus. And you've given us a bit about what you see happening down the road, but will you tell us what you see as the number one enhancement coming down the road for SIAA?
Yeah, I mean, look, and there's a lot of things to get to the number one enhancement, so it won't be maybe the first thing coming out of the gate. But I think the most important or the number one enhancement is really taking a leadership role in technology and the technology growth for us as an organization and for our member agencies. There's when there's $6 billion of investment being made in insurtech, that technology is a tidal wave. And we can either fight it and lose, or we can embrace it and win. And so we've taken the position that we're going to embrace these technology opportunities. We're going to understand them. We're going to partner with carriers. We're going to partner with agencies to make sure we're going down the right path. We're going to have some back and forth and to share some ideas and maybe some quid pro quo on sharing data back and forth. But the technology piece is the biggest piece. If the pandemic increased digital usage by consumers in general by as much as 5 years, and the insurance industry traditionally lags about 5 years behind consumers in technology, then we have 10 years to make up in a really short period right now. And so I think that the SIAA, and by the way, I should point out that while we were going through our transaction and during the pandemic, many of the SIA master agencies were taking their own leadership role and helping us out by exploring technologies that they think will benefit the organization and more specifically benefit the member agencies. And so I think what you'll see is sort of publicly facing is those things will start to move into center stage through 2021 and definitely into 2022. We're seeing that there's more clarity around the technology enhancements that are going to benefit all of us with certain portions of the insurance transaction or data usage.
Gotcha. So, Matt, I happen to know because I've been around you and the organization for a few years now, that technology is not a recent emphasis for you. I've seen you preach the necessary components to technology and running an agency going forward, et cetera. And I happen to be a silver lining guy. And if there was anything, I think, that was kind of the silver lining to what we just went through in 2020 and coming hopefully out of it in 2021. It's that if a lot of what you had been out there talking about prior to that time frame had been in place, it might have been a little bit of an easier transition for a number of insurance agencies out there. And I recognize that the industry as a whole actually did pretty well in 2020. But I just think about how much more is there and how actually it'll be beneficial on an ongoing basis for folks to have that focus you're talking about the SIAA is going to have on technology and now really move it forward. The case has been made, so to speak, and now here's the opportunity to take advantage of it. So.
Yeah, the pandemic has been a horrible experience for many of us, right? And we know lots of people that have struggled with having children at home and daycare challenges and God forbid losing family members or being really ill. And so we're always careful when we talk about the pandemic relative to successful business opportunities. But the basic fact is the pandemic, generally speaking, has been good for insurance agencies. The market, the carriers were strong. They supported the agencies really well. But the agencies also realized that the technology investments they were making, they had to be more agile. And in the book, I actually talk about agencies becoming a lower cost, more agile business model. And the agencies I talked to early in the pandemic, simple things, right? Like they used DocuSign and they could take electronic down payments and, their management system was the cloud and they had a VoIP system. I mean, these are all just table stakes now, a year later, but the agencies that had those things pivoted so quickly when the pandemic hit. And as you know, Tony Caldwell, Eric Blue, and I wrote a book or a guide called COVID Proof Your Agency. We actually turned it around in about 13 weeks. 13 days back in March of last year. And it was really interesting because as we were sort of writing it, we were talking to agencies around the country, the agencies that pivoted remote and they didn't have to worry about getting their house in order, they were working with their clients. They were providing them the PPP information. They were getting payrolls adjusted quicker. They were proactive. And I would talk to these agencies throughout the last year. And those are the agencies that would say to me, I'm so busy. my phone is ringing off the hook, and it's all referrals because of all the stuff that we did very early on in the pandemic. They didn't have to spend time screwing around with their technology and take 3 weeks or a month to figure out how to send their staff remote. They were able to spend time with their clients, and that became a referral source for them in their communities. Conversely, I would talk to some other agencies that would say, and this was the smaller number, that would say, man, we're just dying on the vine. I can't get my phone calls to forward. I can't get access to my management system from my staff. My clients are getting mad at me because we're not returning calls quick enough. And that was a big difference. And so, the one of the things that I think you see when you come out of the pandemic from a business standpoint for those of us in the insurance industry is the strong got stronger. And there's no reason to let up on those capabilities. I mean, it's time to double down on those capabilities in the next several years.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And I will say this, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but something that has really been obvious to me as we got through the second half of 2020 and then coming into 2021 is that the insurance industry overall, and I'm talking about agencies, carriers, you name it, should be proud of how they dealt with 2020. I mean, there were us as a network, SIAA. We made materials available for members gratis that they could utilize. The carriers were doing things to make it easier for agents to do business. And as you were just talking about specifically, agencies are out there having done the right thing and making the transition in order to make it better for their clients. It was really pretty impressive in a very difficult year.
Yeah, I think look, I'm always a believer that our industry doesn't get credit where credit's due, and I think sometimes we don't pound our chest enough when we handle things like natural disasters and so forth. But agencies. Let's talk about independent agencies for a second. Independent agencies are entrepreneurs, and the independent agencies that we do business with at SIA are entrepreneurs, mostly within small towns or within certain communities, and many of them assumed a leadership role across the other entrepreneurs and the business owners in their town, and I think that was a really big deal. I think the other part is, insurance companies get crap sometimes because they're the big money grabs, right? But the basic fact is insurance companies build surplus and they invest resources, and they're here for us when we need them at our most difficult times as consumers. But they were here for us. Even when there weren't claims to be paid, they were here for us. And so it's interesting that the insurance industry, especially the property and casualty industry, is always sort of flagged as recession proof. And what's sort of funny now is as we talk about it, we're not just recession proof, but apparently we're pandemic proof as well. So I think we've all got a great business model if we work in this industry. The question is, what are you going to do with it next? And that's what we're excited to talk to people about next.
Excellent. So we're running short on time, and I just want to make sure that if there's anything else, or we could get a handle on if there's anything else you'd like our listeners to know that you and I haven't discussed regarding the transaction or the future of SIAA.
Yeah, I think I do have one comment on SI's transaction. I spent over a year working on it, as you indicated before. One thing was really clear as I did this is the value of independent agencies and our form of independent agency distribution. And I don't mean monetary value. What I mean by that is for years, we've all heard that independent agencies are dinosaurs and we're a dying breed of insurance distribution and the internet's going to replace us. At first it was banks years ago. I mean, everybody's going to replace us over all these years. And now what we're hearing is that our form of distribution, independent agency, it's evolving and it's thriving. Carriers are investing in it. We've now seen private equity, by the way, not just with us, but with a lot of organizations investing into independent agency distribution. So my big takeaway, and this is what I want independent agencies to hear, especially those thinking about starting independent agencies, is just how strong this industry is viewed. And over the years, I've often used the Thomas Jefferson quote that, it's the harder I work, the more luck I have. And, as I've sort of looked at the pandemic and as I've looked at other different opportunities that have come up over the years, we all see people where we say, hey, he's really lucky or she's really lucky. And I don't think these people are lucky. What I think it is that they're prepared to take advantage of opportunities when opportunities make that appearance when opportunities present themselves. And so I think the independent agency channel over the last couple of years, and now it is very apparent to me, has been presented with an opportunity, and really the best opportunity I've seen in all my years of working in independent agency distribution. And so I just hope that independent agencies see this opportunity, and they take advantage of it, and they see themselves as lucky, but they do the work that's needed to take advantage of this opportunity that's been presented with us. So I'll just say it one more time. There's huge value being placed on independent agency distribution by the financial markets, by the insurance carriers, by consumers, by technology companies. And we can take advantage of this and be strong for the future. And if we don't, then consumers will go someplace else. And so I think we have to recognize that there's some threat, but there's an incredible opportunity that I really hope we all sort of walk hand in hand down the path and enjoy these opportunities in the next several years.
Well said. Okay, so Matt, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Our guest, so everyone remembers this as we log off, as it were, that has been Matt Masiello, Chief Executive Officer at SIAA, and we've been discussing the recent investment in SIAA by private equity firm Odyssey Investment Partners, and the future of SIAA as the CEO sees it going forward. Matt, again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
Sure. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in to this episode of Insurance Agents Talk Shop. I'm Doug Coombs, Chief Marketing Officer at SIAA. And as I stated, this episode was admittedly self-focused, but a good opportunity to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Sorry, Matt. But a good way for people to learn exactly what has been happening around the transaction. And I encourage folks, if you'd like to learn more about SIAA, which still is the largest alliance of independent insurance agencies in the U.S., or about the recent investment announcement, please visit SIAA.com. Thank you.